calling all parents. Do you or did you ever read bedtime stories to your children? Well, if you did, you've been very, very naughty. And if you are doing it right now, you must stop it at once, because according to Professor Adam Swift, presently at University College London, which is by no means a Mickey Mouse university, according to the good professor, when you read bedtime stories to your children, you are disadvantaging all the other children who don't get bedtime stories. Get it? You have committed, or are committing, the cardinal sin of the Equity of Outcome Society. You have given your child an advantage. I hope you feel suitably ashamed of yourself. I read to my children all the time, and now I feel terrible. I'm Granniopteryx. I'm on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. So, what happened was this. In 2015, you see here, in 2015, Professor Swift, who was at the time at Warwick University, was giving an interview to ABC News. And in it he said this, as reported in the National Review. I don't think parents reading their children bedtime stories should constantly have in their minds the way that they are unfairly disadvantaging other people's children, but I think they should have that thought occasionally, he said. Note, he didn't say that I don't think parents reading their children bedtime stories should constantly have in their minds that some children aren't so fortunate. But I think they should have that thought occasionally, which any reasonable person would do. No, he's turned the reading of bedtime stories into an act of disadvantaging other children. You probably won't be surprised by my opinion that I found this attitude shockingly stupid. And this is a professor who was at Warwick University, which is a pretty good institution. And he's now at UCL, which is a very prestigious place. And I don't know how he got there, considering the gobsmacking idiocy of that opinion. He gave that opinion voice in 2015, but unfortunately, his opinion hasn't gone away. Now, if I'd been on the appointments board, I would have ditched him just for that comment, but obviously I'm not intelligent enough to have an opinion like that. And so those opinions that he's giving are going to be promulgated throughout academia, and that's why I'm talking about it now. He might have been talking about this in 2015, but he's still talking about it, and he has students. And he's had students since 2015. So I just want to go through a few points giving you my opinion about why he's so wrong. And maybe I'll speculate about how somebody with his sort of brain, why he is so wrong. I mean, how he got to be so wrong. Okay. So we'll start with the fact that some kids have more advantages than others. Some get bedtime stories and some don't. According to Professor Swift, that's an uneven balance. How about kids who have no parents at all? Does that mean that all those who have children should do away with themselves? Where do you stop with an idea like that? What Swift is doing is he's taking the admirable idea that we should think about those who've less than us in one way or another, and he's turned it into a zero-sum game whereby we should actually feel guilty about that. He's taken a description of a state of affairs and turned it into a description of a deleterious action. Concrete example. Well, okay, all right. If I played netball or basketball, if I were in America, at 5'2", I'm seriously disadvantaged as against my friend Ava, who's as close to 6 foot tall as makes no difference. Is Ava therefore responsible for my short stature? No. So giving Ava a lecture on why she should feel guilty about being able to simply, place the ball in the net, or even telling her to cut her legs off at the knees or something, it makes no sense at all. There's another point. How about this? How about if you have a parent who's good at maths and so helps his daughter to develop her mathematical skills much earlier than the other kids in the class? Is he disadvantaging the other kids? No. What's happening is that the girl who gets the maths teaching, given a chance with a decent teacher, will drag up the standards of the class for all of them. Swift is supposed to be a philosopher, so why doesn't he know that actually disadvantaging someone else, that is, in some way preventing them from getting bedtime stories, is absolutely, completely and utterly different from them simply not getting bedtime stories beyond your control? Now, I tried to do this video a few times because I couldn't come to terms with why Professor Swift was using these arguments. He's supposed to be an intelligent man, and it didn't make any sense to me. And furthermore, they're dangerous, these sorts of arguments, and they're going to end up in some classroom with some brainwashed teacher telling some of the kids they have to feel guilty. They have to feel guilty because their parents read to them. Can he not know that? I'm not saying there are some subjects that you mustn't approach. What I'm saying is that this doesn't make any sense. And surely he knows that. On the, no, I'll play you something else he said. Okay, so I want you to, by the way, this is not a call to in any way contact Professor Swift. I am quite sure he's not the only academic who's come up with a daft argument like that. And I want to point out that he does say, how nice of him, that this taken to its logical conclusion means that children should be brought up by the state. They should be taken by their parents, away from their parents. And he said that's a bad idea. It's not like he's completely mad, but there is just one particular thing that he says that caught my attention.
One way philosophers might think about solving the social justice problem would be by simply abolishing it.
Right, now, there's more than one thing. He says solving the social justice problem. There is no problem. It's already, he's got a universe in which there is a social justice problem. And that, in my opinion, is the wrong standpoint to start with. Okay, but we'll go on. Oh, by the way, this is on a site called Graybian, and they ask you to pay for these recordings to hear them. And if you don't pay, then you get a sort of audio watermark. So you'll hear somebody saying this is Grabian or something during the talk. I'm going to play you only a minute or so of it, don't worry. But that's what the interruption is.
Then it looks plausible to think that if we were to abolish the family, we would create a more level playing field. We'd maybe have kids raised in state institutions or whatever, making sure that these unequal starting points were less unequal, maybe not at all unequal. But everybody, I think, even philosophers, nearly all philosophers who thought about this have thought, no, that would be a really bad idea, right? It would be a really bad idea to have children raised by state institutions, except as a default when something's kind of gone wrong. And so we were trying to think about, well, why exactly would that be a bad idea? Why exactly is it good that children be raised by parents? So what we realized we needed was a kind of a way of thinking about what it was we wanted to allow parents to do for their children.
Right, that's it. What we wanted to allow parents to do for their children. He's got the idea that society should make rules about what we allow parents to do, not rules about what parents should not do. For instance, beating the living daylights out of your kids. Society agrees that this should not be allowed. But what they allow parents to do positively with their children, that's his attitude. And of course, that's a Marxist sort of attitude, isn't it? And it's from that that Professor Swift gets the idea that by doing something positive with your child, you're doing something negative to another child. And that's the most charitable interpretation I can put upon his attitude. Of course, there's always the possibility that he's just a prick. Till next time. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.